I am successful. I am successful because I'm created in the matchless image of God. I am successful because all things work together for my good. I am successful when it's dark. I am successful when I'm in pain because God created me in His image for greatness. I remember a time when my mother had got real violent to where she was throwing wrenches and tools at me. And I remember running out the house on the street just running.
Reggie Foreman grew up in the Chicago projects, in a home as violent as the streets. His parents never married. His father had left to serve in the Army, and his teenage mother was an addict with a short fuse.
What made it worse was I had a brother, but we had different fathers. It seemed like the love that I was supposed to get, he got it. I mean, if I would argue with him, if I would say something to him, he would tell I would get hit. She would take his side.
So Reggie turned to the streets for acceptance. There, he learned to fight to survive. It also gave him an outlet for his rage.
I was angry at my mom, angry at the streets. I wanted to stop being bullied. I wanted to stop being teased and ran home every day. I wanted them to know that if you touch me, I'll hurt you.
Then his mother began prostituting. Reggie wanted out. He went to live with his father, who had moved to Miami after the Army. He was also married and very wealthy. It was a new home and a new life for Reggie, but his father had high expectations.
He always told me, you can be better than me, but it was like he was forcing me. My father's trying to turn me into this productive citizen, but I'm 14 years old, I want to watch hip hop and rap.
Determined to do his own thing, Reggie joined a gang. He was constantly getting into fights and eventually kicked out of 2 schools. He discovered his father had been dealing in drugs and prostitutes.
Now, this is very hard because my father was suits and suspenders and clean cut. Nobody would believe that my father would be doing this. This is like a movie, unbelievable, that my father's a pimp. He started disappearing. I would see him every other couple of weeks, and I started getting in more and more trouble.
Eventually, Reggie's father sent him to live in Alabama with his grandmother, hoping she might influence him to get his life turned around.
I remember my grandmother said, you have to trust in God. I didn't understand how a loving God would have let so much turmoil go on. How did God love me? I thought, okay, when I get 30 and get married, I'll stop what I'm doing.
Reggie moved back to Miami when he was 18, trying to make it on his own. But with no job and no money, he resorted to desperate measures.
I'm at a house with no power, no lights, and everything's going wrong. And I got friends that are making money, $50, $100 a day doing robberies and stuff or selling drugs. So a bank robbery just made sense. Yeah, tonight. Y'all gonna be ready? And we gonna get in and out. I was on my last hope, suicidal. I need this money.
They pulled off the heist, getting away with $22,000. But police tracked Reggie down, and he was convicted of armed robbery.
I'm gonna make it out of this. There's no way out. They're gonna give me all this time. This is what I was told. God will help you. He'll help you out. Pray to him. So I started praying and reading the Bible.
But when he received 2 consecutive 9-year sentences, Reggie unleashed a lifetime of anger and hurt.
I was cursing, crying out to God, where the F were you? Where were you when these guys were chasing me home? Where were you when my mother was beating me? Where were you when I was hungry? And I remember crying out to God, and I just remember saying, God, I really need your help. And I was on my knees crying, suicidal. I was repenting after I lashed out at God. And then right after that, I felt a warm peace come over me. I felt like somebody was in the cell with me. Burden started to lift. Hope came in. He spoke to me and said, I got a purpose for you. It wasn't just, I want you to be saved and go to heaven. He showed me in that moment, I have a purpose for all of that. I was like, wow, this almighty God has a purpose for me.
That day, Reggie gave his life to Christ. He was released early on an appeal in 2008. He travels nationwide, sharing how God has loved him through all he has done.
God has a purpose no matter what your pain is. My purpose is to help people know that God is real and that he...
Or is it hard to say? Because that wasn't your story.
It's hard to say. Like, people ask me, because I was let out of the prison for 3 years, and they said by mistake and came back and got me. So my story gets worse.
Wait a minute. Let me kind of understand this. They let you out of prison, and you're free for 3 years, and they say, "Oh, I made a mistake," and now you have to go back to prison.
Yes. In the midst of I was illegally sentenced, went back to court for the state charge. They overturned the 9 years, and they sentenced me for 3 years. But when I was supposed to go to federal prison, I went back to another state prison. And when it was time to pack up, the federal prison never came and got me. And I got out of Miami, Florida, and I said, I'm not going back to prison. Moved to St. Louis with my church and family. And 3 years later, knocked at the door, U.S. Marshal said, you were let out of prison erroneously by mistake.
Erroneously?
They said erroneously by mistake. After I changed my life, trusting God, I was dating my pastor's daughter. Yeah, I was about to be the deacon in the church.
Wow.
So